Good morning, everybody, and thank you for gathering on short notice. In particular, I'd like to recognize the Administrator of the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, Cynthia Quarterman, and Cynthia will give some remarks to you when I get done. But I think the fact that we've called the first ever emergency meeting of the RSAC in our 17-year history speaks very clearly to the important job that we have ahead. And let me start out by saying something that I so strongly believe, that no group is more qualified or more capable of taking on this job than you, the people in this room. And so our discussion today will focus on how we can further reduce risk in our complex, interconnected rail system, and in the process, strengthen the safe transportation of hazardous materials by rail. And to be clear, the purpose of our discussion is to set the table for acting decisively, for acting effectively, and for ultimately succeeding in ensuring continuous safety improvement. Now, for me, the full weight of what happened in Lac-Megantic hit home when I saw the photos, and I know we'll see them again later in Luke's presentation. But as Bob mentioned, I used to be a mayor, and I saw those photos and I thought to myself, that could have been my town. As the former mayor and about a 45-year resident of Riverdale, Illinois, just a little background, it's a railroad town. 2 major rail yards in town, 5 railroads slicing through the community. And so over the years, we've experienced our share of railroad accidents, a couple of serious ones, and some hazardous spills in Riverdale. So, I mean, I've lived some of this firsthand. But I can only imagine the emotional toll and economic recovery effort that the mayor and citizens of Lac-Megantic now face. And so I'm particularly grateful that Transport Canada's Director General for Rail Safety, Luc Bourdon, is able to be here with us today and to give us a presentation on that tragic accident. At our last meeting, I described the RSAC as a true cross-section of the rail industry, and that's true. And one reason that the RSAC has achieved so much in the past 17 years is because its members are committed to working together to advance rail safety and to attempt to make decision by consensus. Transport Canada, as an associate member, is an essential contributor to all of our discussions. But in particular, given the reasons that we've called this emergency meeting, it's so important that we're able to learn from Director General Bourdon and Transport Canada this morning. Now, the reality is, every day, trains pass through towns throughout the United States and Canada carrying goods that are essential to modern life. Trains connect our economy, they move our nation forward, and overall, rail is an extremely safe mode of transportation. Out of 2.47 million shipments of hazardous materials by rail in 2012, less than a fraction of 1% resulted in any type of release. 2012, by virtually all measures, was the safest year in railroading history. And in the past 10 years, train accidents are down a remarkable 43%. But when lives are lost, when families are broken, when a town is nearly wiped out, this is a reminder that our job when it comes to safety is never done. It becomes our duty to take a hard look at what happened, to understand where additional risk remains in our rail network, and to look for the ways that we can spare other towns from similar tragedies. And so that's why we're here today. Although safety is trending in a very positive direction in the United States, in recent years, we've still seen some very serious accidents. Towns like Plenva in Montana, Columbus and Arcadia in Ohio, and Tuscaloosa and Cherry Valley in Illinois, all places where trains loaded with ethanol have derailed since 2009. And this cumulatively has resulted in 1 death, injuries, fires, evacuations, and significant damage to property and the environment. And then consider what happened in 2005 in Graniteville, South Carolina, where a collision caused 3 cars carrying chlorine to derail and rupture. That accident resulted in 9 deaths, more than 5,000 people being evacuated, and total accident costs of $126 million. And so we learn from every accident. We have a duty to learn from every accident. And we apply what we learn to strengthening our safety program to ensure that continuous safety improvement. Now the investigation into the accident in Quebec is still unfolding, but from what we know so far, we understand the tremendous potential for damage when trains are not properly secured and attended. And that's why earlier this month, we issued an emergency order outlining additional steps railroads must take to prevent trains on mainline tracks and sidings from moving unintentionally. These steps are mandatory, and a failure to comply will result in enforcement actions. And so today, we need to discuss how we make these provisions permanent. We also issued a safety advisory with the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration that includes a detailed list of safety recommendations that we expect the industry to follow. And that also frames today's discussion. And in the past few weeks, FRA plans to begin, in the next few weeks, FRA plans to begin tracking industry compliance with our emergency order and safety advisory on our website so the public can have full and complete transparency. So today is about looking at some of the critical safety areas where we must make improvement. Now, I know everybody in this room, the safety professionals, you're familiar with the Swiss cheese accident model. You have that stack of Swiss cheese, and when the holes in each slice, each represent risk factors. And so accidents happen in those rare events when those holes or those risk factors line up. And so redundancy, or those extra slices of cheese with smaller holes or reduced holes or eliminated holes, are the steps that eliminate risk and further our goal of continuous safety improvement. And so we need the RSAC to help us identify where these risk factors are and how we can proactively address them to prevent future accidents. And as we begin this process, it's important to recognize the regulations governing the securement of unattended trains have been in place for more than a decade. And we know that these regulations, when followed, substantially reduce risk. But we have to do better. We must always do better. We must be certain that the process and procedures currently in place are in line with both our regulations and our emergency order. We must be certain that railroads trainers and testers fully understand our regulations and that they are fully trained in conducting proper tests. And we must be certain that railroad employees fully understand their securement responsibilities, from applying the correct number of handbrakes to properly evaluating other risk factors such as terrain and weather, and are given enough time to properly execute these duties. Another important topic the RSAC will begin to discuss today involves crew size. To be clear, FRA believes that safety is enhanced through multiple person crews, and we have to have an adult conversation on how the coordination and interaction amongst multiple crew members reduces risk from our rail system. But it's critical that this be done from a safety perspective and not be viewed as a job security measure or an attempt to force a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about understanding the nuance of railroad operations, identifying where risks exist in the system, and then eliminating those risks. And so we owe it to the public our willingness to work together and face these challenges head on. And the list of RSAC accomplishments over the past 17 years is proof that you're ready to take on this very important task. RSAC's achievements are a big part of why railroad safety is trending in such a positive direction, and why industry professionalism is rising to even higher levels. And so today, the RSAC, just as it has so many times in the past, will commit to working together to advance rail safety. You've done it before, you must do it again, and I have no doubt that together we will achieve results to benefit the public. So let's get to work.